Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I'm going live because you know what? Why not? It's been a pretty tough couple of weeks here at work, just in terms of a lot to do, and so I haven't had as much time to correspond with people as I would have liked to. What I'm going to go ahead and do right now is share something that's been bringing me joy. A viewer who wishes to remain relatively anonymous, goes by the name Andrew, well, I'm not going to say where he lives, but he has been lightening his collection a little bit. And his approach to doing that is he wants to do some charitable donations. And basically, the deal he made with me is, well, Nick, if I send you knives, will you do reviews and then sell them and then donate the proceeds to charity? And the answer to that is, well, absolutely yes, I will do that. And in fact, that's what I've done here. These knives that I'm putting out on the table here have all been donated by the same guy. And they will all be subject to review on the channel here, and then eventually they will be sold for charitable reasons. Charitable purposes, I suppose. So that's pretty great, I gotta say that. Here's another one up here, and then some other stuff. I have, as a result, just gotten this huge influx of really excellent knives that I'm going to be reviewing. And this, by the way, is like half of the collection that he gave me. It's pretty insane. And so I'm super grateful for that. But as a result, I've got enough knives to review for roughly ever. And the beautiful thing about these donations, and again, this is very unique and very generous, but the beautiful thing is that I can take whatever time I need to in order to do these reviews. Rather than having a quick turnaround. So these can fill in the blanks. So anyways, I wanted to share just some of these items that are up on my table here, including some really exciting and interesting knives. One of whom that's been in my pocket for the last couple of days is this little guy. Pardon me, this is the Jake Hoback MK Ultra. I'm not quite sure what the MK stands for. I think it may be Michael Kors, probably Mini Quieback. But, you know what, whatever. It's an interesting small little knife. So, there you go. That's a very, very interesting little knife. And these are a bunch of very interesting knives, big and little, including some ones that I should have gotten to a long time ago, like the Spyderco Dice here and a whole bunch of others. So, yeah, thank you very much again to my buddy Andrew for sending these knives along for me to take a look at, and thank you to everybody else who continues loaning, sending, etc., and supporting the channel in a variety of ways. So that's pretty great. So I'm going to go ahead and treat this as an Ask the Nick session, which means that if you got a question, well, just ask the Nick. Remember, though, that the questions are just scrolling by here, so there's a pretty good chance that, they don't stick around. So if I don't answer your question, feel free to re-ask your question again later. Don't spam the channel, but, give it a shot. So there you go. Let's just go on ahead and jump into it. Let's see here. Mr. ATV Junkie number 1 asks, Nick, how are you? That's a good question. I've been crazy busy of late. In the last little while, I've been on 2 different continents and in a variety of different states doing work stuff. But I'm back, and that's nice, and it's, I'm finally catching my breath and getting back to doing what I'm doing here. So, there you go. That's a great question. I hope you're doing well, too. And, there's a lot of joy in my life in a variety of ways. Not only, work stuff is going well, but in the gear front, this is a source of major joy to me. This little guy, this Omega that I just released a video about, it's been bringing me a little bit of joy as well. I mean, there's joy to be had all around you, and hopefully you're finding it, too. So, great question over there. Let's see here. Fishfine3000 asks, have I ever thought about doing multi-tool reviews? In fact, I have done multi-tool reviews. If you go, I'm trying to remember there's a playlist I think that's dedicated to multi-tools, but I've done the Leatherman Wave, which is right here, always right next to my table for working with. Leatherman Charge TTI, I think I've done the Rev, that one hasn't aired yet. I've done a bunch of multi-tool reviews, and I'm going to keep doing them, because they're fun. They're something I use on a regular basis, and I enjoy them, so that's good. So yeah, that's the multi-tool review situation there. Let's see here. Jean-Baptiste Cadamon asks, let's see, how many French words do I know? Oh, that's pretty tough. So I had about a semester of college French, but je ne parle pas français, and as a result, I don't have all that much left of it. But I may have a couple hundred words, something like that. Probably more if I'm trying to find my way from a train station, something like that. But French is not a language I'm great with, and if I try and speak, sooner or later I turn out speaking Spanish. So that's life. Sorry about that. Jarvis Lai asks, can I flip the Axis flipper? Absolutely. This is the Benchmade 300, and I believe this is the Dash 1 model. But either way, it's a very weird, very unique knife in that it is the only knife I'm aware of that is an Axis lock, so it uses this locking mechanism here, but it also includes a flipper and a flipper tab, which it kind of functions a little differently with an Axis lock because the source of the detent is the geometry of the knife itself, and so it's not got a very strong detent. It's not a great flipper, but you know what? It does the trick, and it's a very different and interesting approach. So, yeah, that's this little guy right here. I've been wanting to review one of these for a long time, just never had one on my table, and now, again, grateful to my buddy Andrew, I do. So that's a beautiful thing. Let's see here. Is that the Kershaw Agile, the silver one on top of the Spyderco? No, I don't know of that. Oh, this little guy right here, I believe, is what you're talking about. This is the Hindera MP1. This is a very interesting knife, sort of a different Hindera than the XM18, one of his newer models. Yeah, so I am looking forward to getting the chance to carry this guy a little bit more. This is another Hindera right here, also. Same guy. This is the Hindera half-track, and this is a pretty interesting knife to me because of the size. I mean, if we put this up next to Benchmade 940, here, for size comparison, you can see this is not a large knife, and so it's a Hindera sort of answer to things like the Spyderco Techno. And, although I give Hindera crap on occasion for a variety of things, I always do appreciate Hindera's industrial design. And so I'm very curious to see how this works for an everyday carry sort of tool. So, yeah, Hindera is one of my favorite designers, even despite everything else. So that's good. Have I ever looked into the Bradford Guardian 3? No, I have actually never handled a Bradford knife. That's certainly an oversight, but it is certainly the case. So there you go. Great question, though. What are the two in the upper left corner? These are both Zeba knives. See here, and I'm not remembering the model names offhand, but they are both Zeba knives, both very interesting in a lot of ways. Nice action, lightweight, relatively thin. This is another Zeba down here, and it has the Zeba trademark devil's tail clip on there, which I love aesthetically and which I really dislike in terms of the amount of ramp you have and going into the pocket there. But really, another neat little knife. In a lot of ways, sort of it's half-tracky in its size here. So just to give you a sense of size comparison. So there you go. That's an Mkosta up at the top there. Let's see here. Hypervigilance 1 says, Knife snob likes ugly, overpriced knives. So that's something I'm accused of very often there, Hypervigilance, and I recognize you. You're very often making, well, shall we say, frustrating comments on the channel. Yeah, one could definitely accuse me of being a knife snob. The thing is, though, I try very hard not to be. Do I always succeed? No, absolutely not. And there are certain things that I consider to be a problem that a lot of people don't. Things like fit and finish issues, like a little bit of up and down blade play or side to side blade play. That bothers me in a way that I don't think it bothers a lot of people. For a guy who generally walks around with a $10 knife, a lot of the things I complain about aren't legitimate complaints. So, yeah, you could make an argument there that I am absolutely a knife snob. And do I like overpriced knives? Well, sure. It all depends on what you're willing to pay for a knife, what you're willing to consider to be a reasonable amount to pay for a knife. To me, that number is way higher than to 99% of the world. And so in that way, sure, do I like overpriced knives? You could make that argument. The thing is, I'm trying really hard to keep some perspective, and that's part of the reason why I'm trying very hard to review knives that are less expensive. Like this little guy right here is a Kershaw Dividend. And I'm forgetting the exact price on this guy. I want to say it comes in around 30 or 40 bucks. But the thing is, even as a knife snob, and I don't want to spoil anything, But this is a super impressive knife to me. And thank you very much to the Birdshot IV channel for sending this guy along. Frankie and Bud are excellent. But anyways, this is a knife that I very much love, even though I don't think anyone could argue that it's overpriced. And, you know, frankly, it's just great. So I know you were just trying to troll me there. And, you know, you're welcome to do that. But you do raise an interesting point. Am I a knife snob? And does it really matter? So, good one. Okay, this is excellent. Hypervigilance1 just said, hey, good comeback. He's the same one who, cool, I want to troll. Kevin Wright just says, do you think the Sage 5 is a really good EDC? Yes, that's a really good knife for everyday carry. For a couple of reasons. It's a nice ergonomic blade shape. Ergonomic shape overall, kind of like the Spyderco Dice right here is the one that comes immediately to mind. It's got the compression lock, which is one of the very best locking mechanisms out there. It is a solid knife, and frankly, for the price, you're getting a great deal of value, in my personal opinion. There are other knives, and it's not the best choice for a lot of people. For instance, for a lot of people, the Spyderco PM2 may be better for how-to-use situations, or even the PM3, but the Sage 5 is absolutely good to go. It's an absolutely great knife. So, yeah, that's a great question. Fungi Man, if you can tolerate the sharp hole of the Sage 5, yeah, I understand that feeling. The thing is, with any kind of a spider hole, if you've got too much sharpness, actually, this probably, yes, indeed, this does have that. All you really need to do is to take some kind of a ceramic rod, or even a little bit of an 800 grit, some sort of sandpaper, and you roll it up in a little tube, or you roll it around something, like a big pen or something like that, and then in order to reduce that sharpness a little bit, you just put that sandpaper in there and kind of go like this and do one of these things where you just try to sand down and put a little bit of a manual chamfer on that. Go from a 90 degree to a 90, just rounding slightly. And it's amazing how much 5-6 minutes with a little bit of sandpaper or the ceramic stone can really, really improve that inside of the knife and make that thumb hole a much nicer thing. So, yeah, that's definitely a problem, and it seems to be a problem very often with the Taichung Spydercos, particularly when they do things like this, where you can see the plunge grind is intersecting with the Spidey hole there. So, yeah, that's a great point, though. You gotta watch out for that. And I'm throwing things. Hold on just a second. There we go. Putting some background lighting in there. Forgot a step. Let's see here. Question. I've always wondered why a sharpening choil is a bad thing when missing. So, look, I am not God's gift to sharpening, 100%. But the thing is, the reason you want a good sharpening choil, who's got a good sharpening choil for me? Perfect. Okay. The reason you want a good sharpening choil, like on this little guy, the Spyderco Sleesh Bowie, is that you are able, because there's no material right here, you are able to get the entire knife sharpened at a uniform angle. As opposed to on a knife like this guy, although this is very nicely sharpened for without that, but see, there's this little area right down here that you can't ever quite get sharp. And in fact, as you sharpen the knife more, you're going to have more and more of that kind of moving up there. What's a really... Well, unfortunately, the Grimsmo Rask is a great example of a knife that needs a sharpening choil. You can see here that this is the edge of this knife. You back it off a little bit, and this whole area here isn't sharpened. And it's very hard to sharpen that, and in fact, as you sharpen it more, you're going to end up with awkward. So it is a nice thing. Is it super necessary? No, and in fact, some people, Eric Glesser, I am told, makes the argument that if you have a sharpening choil on a knife like the PM2, there is an area where if you're making a cut into something, you can snag on the sharpening choil, which is by definition not sharpened. And so that is something you got to keep in mind. For some people, a sharpening choil is not a good thing. That said, for me personally, it is always a good thing. It's something I prefer very much because I sharpen my own knives. So Jayden Inglis asks, what's your favorite color? And he asks it very loudly, and he's been asking it repeatedly. Again, remember that if I don't get to your question, that's because 15 other questions have scrolled by quickly. My favorite color on a knife is probably blue, and in practice is probably kind of a navy blue, maybe a purple, something along those lines. Black is the absence of colors, so it doesn't count, but still, there you go. Let's see here. Ryan Sondercook, do I have any Byrd knives? They're inexpensive and supposed to be pretty good. That's a great question there, Ryan. The thing is, no, I don't. I have done a review of the Byrd Meadowlark 2, which was kind of like a ripoff of a Delica that was made by Spyderco, so it's okay. And honestly, it didn't impress me at all. The fit and finish was just terrible. It was tragic. And so I haven't really gone back to Byrd since. I'm told that they can do way better. What is it? The Raven 2 is one that a lot of people recommend to me. But the thing is, I haven't gotten there. And there are so many great knives from so many other great people that when a brand screws me once, I tend not to go back. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, Byrd is actually made by Spyderco Delica. So there you go. Rich Cacone asks, how often do I buy knives off of Reddit? So Reddit has a knife community. The subreddit is called Knife Club. And then there is there's Knife Swap as well. And that's one place that you can buy and sell knives. Another good place would be Blade Forums, things like that. I try to buy used knives wherever I can. I'll say that as I've done the channel, that's become less and less common for me because very often people are coming to me directly and saying, hey, Nick, I know you want X. I've got one of these. Do you want to buy it? And so it kind of works out well for me. But in the past, I bought used knives all the damn time. And in fact, I have a video called Nick's Guide to Buying Used Knives. Somebody has to flash the Omega. That you might enjoy if you're curious about that. So Brandon Glockner asks, what's the very best large EDC knife under $100? And that's this guy right here. This is the Ontario Rat number 1 in D2 steel. You know, I'll say it's a fine knife, but in D2 steel, it is really exceptional. And you can get like $35 or so for this, and you get something that's pretty incredible. Another good candidate for that would actually be the Spyderco Endura. It's a very large knife. It's sort of the big brother to your Spyderco Delica. But it's another great knife. I've got a review of that coming up one of these days. But, you know, for me at least, if you're looking for a large, beefy, everyday carry, you're going to really struggle to do that much better than your Ontario Rat number 1 here. The EC's Vispa, I believe is the name. No, yeah, Vispa. The Rat 1 of the EC world is pretty good. So, yeah, there you go. What new ZT would I want a sprint run of, asks Craig Ferguson. Oh, that's tough. So look, one thing that I regret, one of my knife regrets, is that the ZDP 189 ZT 450 CF, this was this knife basically, but with a silver scale on this side and a ZDP blade. That's a beautiful thing. And so for me personally, one of the knives I would absolutely love, I never picked one up because, and it's probably right, I wouldn't have carried it, but it is still an incredible knife. And so I would love to see a ZT Sprint of this guy with like M4 steel and the carbon fiber again. So, you know, that would be the ZT Sprint that would be most interesting to me. Also, you know, the 562 CF, if they did that in M4 steel, oh, I would have a lot of trouble not buying that knife. So there you go. Somebody else just asked me, sorry I missed your name, about the Dozier knives, and I believe this right here is a Dozier knife. This is also from one of my viewers, whose name I'm forgetting offhand. I want to say this is Andrew Zero for You. Different guy, but this is an interesting knife. I have honestly not gotten a chance to carry it at all, and I gotta say I'm loving the Z Hunter look here. That's bringing me some joy. But, you know, aside from that, so far the knife seems pretty solid, and I don't have any major complaints, but I don't know enough about it to say anything, you know, more definitive, as you will, right now. So that's a great question, though. Let's see here. Nick, a while ago you teased a review for the Cricket Swindle. What do you think about it? Oh, that's a great question there, buddy. Cricket Swindle right here. This is a knife that I have bought and that I have been holding on to and waiting to review roughly forever. As I've always said, things that are in my private collection take way longer to review than anything else because there's always stuff coming in besides that to look at. But this is still a fairly impressive knife. The clip drives me up the freaking wall, I'll admit that freely. And, you know, it's very slippery, and ergonomically speaking, it's got some pros and some cons, let's put it that way. But, you know, honestly, action-wise, this is a great little flipper for the price that you're paying, and it's one of the nicer things I've seen CRKT do. So, great question there. Alrighty. Let's swap out some of these knives real quick as I'm thinking about that. Let's see here. What was I going to say here? Sanjay Rave asks, any advice on buying custom knives? What are the very best vendors? That's tough to say. And by the way, this is how I'm storing all of these knives that have come to me recently. Because, well, I love Kaizen foam. This is just foam that you can cut out yourself, and it's a great thing because well, it allows me to store a crap ton of knives vertically like this, and have easy access to them next time I want them. Just absolutely a freaking beautiful thing. And so the cost of the set of drawers I've had for years and years now, and the foam itself was like $20 or something for all the foam I could ever possibly freaking need. And so, this is how I've been storing these guys. Moving along, back at the ranch. Custom knives. Where do you buy custom knives? That's a little bit tricky because it really depends on the custom knife maker. Many people are very happy to sell them again on the secondary market. Sometimes you can get a great deal, particularly if the maker is not super in demand. There are some makers where you can buy their customs any day of the week because there are a bunch of people who are up there and trying to get rid of them. Sometimes, though, you get your face ripped off on the secondary, depending on the maker again. Very often, though, makers will do things via Instagram these days, where if you follow a given custom knife maker on the Instagram, I don't know, it's not so much on blade forums anymore, you will find them posting things like, okay guys, there's going to be a lottery for X, Y, and Z custom knife coming up tomorrow at 3 p.m., enter then, or we're going to do an auction here, or first person to email me a picture of a kitten will get this knife, or something like that. Silly little things, but that's a good way to get a custom from an in-demand maker. It's something that is closer to what's called table price. And so you're not going to get the secondary markup from an in-demand sort of maker. That's another good place. Some makers still do have open books where you can literally say to them, and that's what the Grimsmos did on this guy, although this was more of a pre-order thing, where you can say to them, hey, I want this knife, I want the backspaces bronze, I want the blade to be the generic RWL34, I want this pattern on the... And they'll still allow that to happen. They don't tend to have long-term openings in their books, but they'll pop them open for a little while. Things like that. So, those are a couple of different ways. And, of course, you could go to a major blade show, whether it is the blade show, like the one that's coming up here in June, or you could go to any of your local custom knife shows. Maybe someone will show up there. You can pay table price, which is going to be better. So, great question there. Let's see here. Let's see. Lane Howard asks, how you liking the Rask? This is still a knife I like very much. I did the review of it, and, hopefully everybody got a chance to see that, and it still captures my feelings nicely. It is still a great knife. It still has an incredible action. This is still one of the knives that I don't carry as often as I'd like to, but mostly because something else is always in my pocket. But on a day where I decide, I'm going to carry something of my own, the Rask is very often getting some pocket time, along with the TiLock, which is another great knife, which was just discontinued. I could cry. Chris Reeve Knives, sorry, this is an unrelated rant, but Chris Reeve Knives has discontinued the TiLock. I talked to Tim Reeve himself, and it's true. It's gone. They're not making any more of these, and it's just freaking sad. Because this is such a damn good knife, and so if you want a TiLock, and you do want a TiLock, you should get your TiLock right now, because they're never coming back again, and that's just sad. So anyways, that's been a source of pain in my heart lately. Oh man, I found that out sitting in a Friendly's, which is like a little ice cream and food store, really bad food, in, rural Pennsylvania, I believe. It was sad, and the whole situation was just made sadder by the fact that there was somebody in the next booth changing their kid on top of the table. The whole situation was just sad all around, but I couldn't believe when they finally killed it. Sad. I'll remember the day. Let's see here. Moving it along there, I think you'll review the Benchmade Crooked River, asks Ryan Sondercook. So that is a big old Benchmade in their Hunt series, so it's wood and metal and whatnot. Absolutely crazy knife surprisingly large. They're talking about a mini Crooked River, and I absolutely want to pick one of those up. But the Crooked River itself, I'll be honest, doesn't appeal to me all that much. It's a great knife in a lot of ways, but it's not a Nick knife. And given Benchmade's been betraying me lately, in terms of the QC, it's just not something I'm going to run down. Let's see here. Daniel DeSanto asks, any experience with Mazarina Viper knives? So Viper knives, my only experience with Viper, honestly, was the Giant Mouse GM2. And they were the maker of that knife, and they didn't do a great job of it. And so I'm going to be honest there. Seeing that, which was supposed to be sort of a higher grade knife, seeing them screw that knife up in terms of fit and finish, just kind of left me feeling like I'm not going to bother with these people until they get it together. Is that fair? No, and that's something I always struggle with as a reviewer. You know, it's possible always that I get the one bad case. With the GM2, I've heard of a lot of people having issues, so it's not super surprising to me. But still, that's a company that I've just not felt the need to run down further. And, you know, there were a couple other companies on that list for me. If, you know, I had a bad experience, and I'm just not going to go down that road again. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And so I'm not doing that again. Maybe someday. Whatever. Let's see here. Dominic Lamar asks, do you buy cheap knives just for the collection and the looking? Oh, why do I buy cheap knives? So the Z Hunter is the classic example of this. But, you know, I've got some other beautiful cheap knives that are just, they're just spectacular. Where is the Snap-on? Oh, here it is. There's also the Snap-on. You know, at some level, I look at cheap knives as being healthy for me. It helps to prevent me from becoming a knife snob. Because the simple fact of the matter is that this cheap knife, and this is about as cheap knives come, in terms of build quality and whatnot, still cuts things. Like, at a fundamental level, what is the difference as a functional tool between this $10 knife that I got at Menards and this, let's see here, this $700 knife that you can buy only through weird guys in Canada? They both cut things. Fundamentally, ergonomically. Okay, I still like this a little better, but still. So, I don't know, I try and focus on the cheap too on occasion because, well, you gotta keep some perspective. By the way, H Ready, 7 Ready Knife Reviews just stepped in here. He's another YouTube guy. You should check him out at some point. Snap-on folder review when? I got something special planned for the Snap-on, so keep an eye on the channel. I don't know exactly when it's going to drop, but hopefully it's going to be a beautiful thing. You know, that one's not exactly a hotly anticipated knife. Let's just be real here. Flores Sykeman asks, Sykeman, do you favor light switch or push button flippers? So what he's referring to there is that there are some flippers that are really designed to be used with this kind of motion, a light switch motion, like you're flicking a light switch, or at least an American light switch. And there are some knives that are really designed to be used by pressing straight down onto the flipper tab. You can often light switch these, and some are very much both, but there is a major distinction there. Do I really care? Not really. You know, I guess maybe I prefer light switch just because that's what I started with, but at the same time, a good push-button flipper doesn't bug me particularly. I mean, this is a push-button flipper, and it's great, so, you know, no complaints there. But, you know, there are many, many ways to do a beautiful thing, let's put it that way. This right here is, somebody's mentioning the Benchmade 940-2. This was another donation. This is a G10 version of the Benchmade 940, complete with Z Hunter green backspacer there. Or standoffs, that is. And this is very helpful to me because the Benchmade 940 is a very nice knife, and it's a knife that's, well, it's got a lot going for it. When it is properly made, this is one of the better things that Benchmade makes. And, you know, it's a good point of comparison because a lot of knife guys end up loving this guy. And like I said, if you get a good one, this is absolutely a spectacular knife. Particularly if you get it at a used price rather than Benchmade's kind of shafty retail. So, there you go. Keep that in mind. Let's see here. Is that a Sage 1 you see? No, you're not seeing any Sage 1s. You're seeing a carbon fiber and M4 Spyderco PM2 here. So yeah, Bobby Laurent asks, any changed thoughts on the Spyderco Stretch 2? No, I don't. I haven't actually handled the Stretch 2. The Stretch 1 didn't bring me all that much joy. The Stretch 2, Sure, I'd love to check one out and see if it wins me over suddenly, but I get the impression that everything I disliked about the Stretch is still going to be there, and practically speaking, I mostly just disliked that knife. For whatever reason, it didn't rub me the right way. It's a better knife than I probably gave it credit for, but, it never brought me joy. Here, let's snap that in there. So, yeah, I may check one out at some point, but it's not on the top of my list that I need to do. Let's see here. What else? Treddy asks, have you ever checked out a Cheburkov? My buddy Seven Ready over on the YouTube is a big fan of Cheburkov. He is one of their most vocal supporters. I haven't ever handled one of their knives. It's another Russian knife maker, kind of along the lines of Shirogorov. And a lot of their designs, they've got some unique things, and he mentioned that they're going to be a blade show, and I'd love to check them out there. They've not made anything that really just grabs me by the dangly bits and brings me joy. Oh God, that's not the right phrasing. Anyways, but moving right along back at the ranch. But the thing is, I'd like to check them out one of these days there. Let's see here. Let's see. Best steel for corrosion resistance besides H1 steel. That's going to be LC200N. The one of the few knives that's made in that right now is the Spyderco Spidey Chef, which is a Marzine Sleesh design. And I think that's a great steel. My buddy Peter over at Cedric A to Gear and Outdoors did a edge test recently where he took the Spidey Chef, and he did a series of cutting tests on rope and found that it was a great performer. I feel like I have been vindicated very much by Peter over there because honestly, I said in my review that LC200N was a great steel and that it was a very good performer in my experience. I had this team of people coming in trying to prove the teacher wrong and say, no, it can't be because it's got the nitrogen and the and they just went freaking crazy on me and saying, no, it's got terrible steel, you're crazy, you're on crack. There you go, case freaking closed. Proof is in the pudding, it's a fine steel, so shut up, haters. Whoa there. Sorry about that. Moving it right along there. So LC200N is a great steel, something you should consider any day of the week. So, let's see here. Mike L says, hey, Nick, you should do a review of a Tac Force knife. Tac Force is another very low-end knife company that knife guys love to make fun of. If you love a Tac Force knife, that's fine. And hopefully it brings you joy. There are safety issues, though, so you got to watch out for that. And you might consider looking at my budget review video, budget review playlist, that is, to find something that may be a little safer for you in the long term there. So, great question. Let's see here. Daniel DeSanto, now I want pudding. Nice. Oh, I'm sorry, that was Michael Nethercutt. Any thoughts on Maxamet? Seven Ready asks this. Yes, as a matter of fact, I think that I've got one that should arrive on Monday. Look, again, after seeing Peter over at Cedric A to do another cutting test on Maxamet and seeing insane performance off of it and being really curious and loving the Spyderco Native 5 design, I went ahead and ordered a Native 5 in Maxamet recently. What am I going to do with it? I don't know. I'm probably going to do stupid things, like try and cut one knife with another knife. Something like that. Apparently that's possible with Maxamet. But, nonetheless, that is something I'm very curious about, and I can't wait to see it there. Let's see here. And by the way, guys, somebody was just asking about my top picks, and practically speaking, right here, just as a collection update as I'm throwing things around here, these knives right here are in my permanent collection. In fact, this is... oh, right here, Spyderco Delica. And I guess the Sebenza belongs in here as well. This is pretty much my permanent collection at this point. I did a little bit of selling, partly to fund this little Omega here. And in that process, the Alamic custom that I had went away, which is kind of important. But, yeah, so there you go. This is the current permanent collection here. Sebenza is a knife that as I've used it and carried it more, I've grown to appreciate more as well. I gave my large Sebenza review, and I stand by everything I said there, but this really is an exceptional knife. The large one, that is. The small one ergonomically was just terrible for me. It was like, I don't know, freaking a gym sock full of rattlesnakes in my hand. But whatever. The large one I like so much, and I'm very happy about it. In fact, on Sunday, you're going to see a review of the carbon fiber and Tanto Sebenza coming up soon here. So there you go. The Rusty Spoke asks, are they going to make a medium Sebenza? That'd be nice. I'll definitely try it. I kind of hope that they do something else as well. Because right now, Chris Reeve Knives, especially now that they've killed off the TiLock, is running the risk very, very much of being the Sebenza company. Like that, because that's kind of that's what they make right now. They have the Sebenza 21. They have the Sebenza 25, which is now called the Inkosi line. So the large and small Inkosi. They've got the Umnums on, and they've got some fixed blades. And it's pretty much all gray titanium frame locks that are pretty Sebenza-ish. I'm totally game with them doing right what they do right, but to watch them kill off the most innovative thing in their lineup kind of bugs me. So I'm hoping they're going to do better than that. Let's see here. The Mnandi. Thank you very much, Soggy Avenger. Yeah, the Mnandi is the other thing that they do that's a little bit outside the pale. There we go. Let's see here. Mr. ATV Junkie says, what's my thoughts on Ganzo? Ganzo Knife Company is one of those companies that... Look, I'm sure they make fine knives. I've handled one of them. They're nice. But the problem is most of their knives are straight off, design lifts from other companies. If you look at Ganzo's lineup, there is not, at least not that I'm aware of offhand, a single knife that is not based on somebody else's design. There's no such thing as copyright on a knife design. This is a matter of public evidence in a variety of legal cases going on right now. But... it is still really ugly when your company exists mostly to create versions of other people's knives. I don't like that, and so in that way, Ganzo really leaves me feeling pretty unimpressed. I just find it deeply lazy. But you know what? Whatever. That said, their build quality can be A-okay, so it's something to keep in mind. Mall Ninja Monday series, that would be pretty entertaining. I do have a desire to check out some more Mall Ninja-y stuff from time to time, because there is joy to be found there. But anyways, let's see here. Any suggestions for an affordable production front flipper with an action worth a damn? Oh, boy. Do you want a pony, too? Sorry, but in all seriousness, there's not that much out there in the front flipping world. The Boker Excalibur #1 is about the only thing that comes to mind for me. It is a good front flipper with a nice action, at least the one I had is. So there you go. Let's see here. Please keep the PM2 for comparison. Sure, right here. Enjoy it. Any opinions or preferences on leather strops? As a matter of fact, I've got a couple of strops around here for review. I have one that is made by a gentleman from Reddit, which is quite nice. And recently, another guy reached out to me who makes really high-end strops. This is the freaking Cadillac of strops. And it's pretty impressive. And so I have been using this, and the guy actually had it engraved for me. Which is like, at some level, like, okay, that's really kind of you. But... hopefully you don't think that's going to help the review, do you? But no, I mean, this is a very nice strop as well. So I'm working on a couple of strop reviews for you guys, but the problem with strops is that at some level, it's more what you make of them. If you haven't completely screwed up a strop, if the surface on it is overall flat, and, past that, it's all little details. It's, is it a pretty strop? This is a very pretty strop. But even if it's not a pretty strop, you know what? It's still going to work. You can do this with a cardboard freaking box at some level. And so the real question is, what do you want to pay? What kind of niceness do you want? Do you want an object that is beautiful? Or do you just want something that'll strop things? Yeah, phone book paper works fine too. Good point, Jason L. But yeah. Ryan Sondercook asks, why'd you go with gray for my Delica? Honestly, I just like it. It's a pretty color. It's not like I don't know, it's got a little bit of a blue to it. It just was what appealed to me most. So there you go. That's why I ended up with it. Let's see here. Age Requart asks, what do I think of leather watch straps? For me, leather straps don't make all that much sense. I am a big fan, personally, of a good bracelet on a watch. And for a couple of reasons. Partly because it's going to be pretty damn durable, partly because I like metal, let's just be real here, and partly because it is completely and totally waterproof and smell-proof. You can wear this on a really hot summer day, and yeah, you're going to sweat on the metal, but you know what? You wash your hands, you wash your watch, your case freaking closed. Problem solved. Generally, a watch on a leather strap is not interesting to me. Another good option is a NATO strap, like this little citizen right here is wearing. This is, by the way, a watch that I've purchased for review. It's an $80 quartz watch. It's got a lot of good for it, absolutely. And it's an eco drive, it's solar. But it's riding a NATO strap at the moment, a nylon webbing sort of thing. These are nice in that they are also completely waterproof. They have the advantage that if one of the spring bars for the watch breaks, the watch will stay on the strap and the strap will stay on your wrist. Unlike a bracelet, where if a bar breaks, the whole thing's coming off. So, but yeah, there you go. But generally, leather straps to me, they're not waterproof, they're not sweat-proof, and I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. But that's a different thing. Let's see here. Let's see. Any thoughts of using a Leatherman Tread as an alternate watch bracelet? That's a really great question there. So the Leatherman Tread is it's a multi-tool that's designed to fit around your wrist. The problem with the Leatherman Tread for me is that I have relatively small wrists. On any given watch, I end up taking like 5 or 6 links out for it to fit nicely around my wrist. And the Leatherman Tread, in order for it to be a super useful tool, requires you to have a bunch of the components on there. And so my tread would be freaking tiny. And if you had a watch in there, practically speaking, I'd have like 4 or 5 tools on there. So add in the fact that the Leatherman Tread is also super expensive. I'm just not interested in going there. So, you know, and yeah, so I don't think I'm going to go that route. The other thing I'll say is that I think the fiancé might well kill me. Like, she is willing to be seen in public with a whole bunch of things on me. Like the Casio Royale, she had a bit of a trouble with, but I don't think the Leatherman Tread would survive. Let's just put it that way. I would find it cast into the fires of Mount Doom some night while I'm sleeping. So, there you go. Live Prepared 24, am I more impressed with Benchmade or Spyderco's 2017 lineup? I'm going to say Spyderco. Spyderco's got some stuff in 2017 that's really appealing to me. Benchmade for 2017 only really announced one knife that was interesting, and that's the Gold Class Valet. That said, that's not a knife I'm going to buy, because right now, I don't know. Right now, Benchmade isn't. Because they've been having some issues lately in the QC department, I don't trust them enough to make a $500 knife for me. So I'm not going there. But Spyderco's got a lot more that's interesting to me, so keep that in mind there. Let's see here. Daniel DeSanto, will I do any large and medium-sized multi-tool reviews? Absolutely. I mean, I have already a review of the full-size Leatherman Wave and Charge TTI, and I think I'm going to be doing a super tool review one of these days here. So, Michael Nethercutt asks, Gold Class, does that mean they actually QC it? I've heard horror stories of people who've had gold classes without, but that said, I really hope that, there are a bunch of people saying that Benchmade is back, that they've started to address these issues, and if that's the case, that is wonderful. I've said this many times, but Benchmade was my first love in the higher-end knife world, and so I want very, very much for Benchmade to get it back in gear and to be doing a great job for the knife world. They have so many great designs, and it's a shame to have the inconsistency there. But the thing is, Benchmade is going to need to prove it to me to be back. They're going to have to really do a great job, and they're going to need to be damn near perfect for a while before I'm going to trust them. I mean, it's like if you share a cabin with a guy who twice in the last 2 years has come up behind you and kicked you in the nuts really, really hard. It's like, okay, at some level, even if he hasn't done it in 6 months, you're not going to be super comfortable with it. And so similarly, with a company like that, where I've had some really bad experiences, even if they've been okay for 6 months, I'm going to need to wait and make sure. The inconsistency is what's scary. If it was the case that everything they made was terrible, then that would be a problem. But instead, it's just that they've got a much higher proportion than usual. So I hope that they don't kick me in the nuts. So, good question there. James Lashbrook asks, can I recommend a gents folder in the $200 range? Oh, that's a good one. offhand comes to mind, the Spyderco Chaparral is a pretty good option. The Gale Bradley Air from Spyderco is another pretty decent knife choice. I think it's discontinued now, but it was kind of gentlemanly. Who else would be a good $200 gentleman's folder? The Boca Urban Trapper has a nice wood model. It's not the most durable thing ever, but by God, it does the trick. It's also kind of huge. And then actually, this little guy over here. Hold on just a second here. Boca, come here, Quakin. You're killing me, Boca. Sorry, I got a lot of knives around. But that's life. Well, either way, there is a nice carbon fiber Boca Quakin out there in the world, which is... here we go, this guy. Boca Quakin, carbon fiber. It's vaguely gentlemanly, although it's kind of gentleman samurai. So, take it for what it's worth. Spyderco Techno is another knife that is, I don't know if it's a gentleman's folder, but it's a very nice design, and it is not terribly, So, there you go. Do I think knife companies should offer more deep carry clips? That's a great question. And actually, that's something I've been contemplating doing a little bit of a rant about. The very best thing that Benchmade does, in my opinion, well, no, they've got some great designs, but one of the very best things they do is that they offer an aftermarket deep carry clip for every knife they make, or damn near every knife they make. And they'll send it to you for free. And this is wonderful because it gives you the option. It allows you to, if you want to carry deep, and if you want to carry shallow. And that's wonderful. And it's something that I wish, for instance, Spyderco would adopt. They've said on a couple of occasions, or at least I've heard it said, that Spyderco's view is they don't want to put the guys who are making aftermarket clips out of business, but I really feel like that would be a big improvement to quality of life if they were to allow that to be a thing. So, there you go. Do I recommend the budget Casio for yetis? It really depends on what kind of a budget Casio you're after here. The Casio Royale might be a little bit hair-pinchy, but this guy, for instance, the F108, is a great watch, and he's just fine for really hairy individuals. Like myself, let's be real here. That said, unless the bracelet is terrible, by and large, it's still going to be okay. So, keep that one in mind. The entire Sage lineup falls into the Gent folder lineup. Fungi Man, I'm not so sure I would consider Sage. Maybe the Sage 5 is a gentleman's-ish thing. I don't know. It's sort of in that weird everyday carry to gentleman area. That EDC freak, pardon me, is asking what my thoughts on the Kershaw Nura are. I was not impressed. Maybe I just got a bad one, but I'm not the only person to get a bad one. You're going to be seeing that review coming up actually relatively soon here. So there you go. Can I take apart a backlock or axis lock live, says Matthias Mertens. Yes, I could absolutely take apart a backlock live, but it wouldn't be a Spyderco backlock, let's put it this way, or at least it wouldn't be an FRN one. For instance, as much crap as I give Cold Steel on a regular basis, their backlocks are exceedingly well designed for disassembly. I recently took apart, this is a Cold Steel Code 4 that was donated to me by, I want to say, Andrew Bonte, the Zero for You. This is a great knife in terms of disassembly because it's all metal. You just unscrew, take the thing apart. I could take this back apart, upbeat if I wanted to. But, so this guy I would take apart. The Delica, there's not the remotest chance in heck that I'm taking that guy apart live. Oh, the Delica. Let's see here. Tonto and serrated, good God, yes. Jaden Ingalls asks, can I do backflips? Yes, indeed. Here, ready? Here it goes. Here, I'll do another one. There you go. 2 backflips just for you there, buddy. Let's see here. My thoughts on William Henry knives. So James Lashbrook, great question. I've only handled a couple of William Henrys. They are very, very nice knives in a lot of ways. By the way, I cannot actually do a backflip. I don't want to deceive you guys. I am so uncoordinated that I would land on my face in a heartbeat. But anyways, William Henry knives have very, very beautiful materials, very, very beautiful designs. But unfortunately, At least the ones I've handled haven't had fit and finish to match. I think they're very, very nice jewelry, but as a knife guy, they left me unsatisfied. I would much rather see better fit and finish out of them, especially at that kind of price range. So, yeah, there you go. Let's see here. Soggy Avenger asks, when do you think the Kizer Feist will hit dealers? I have no idea. I am not Kizer. They have said that they might send me one for review, because Kizer has been sending me knives on occasion, which is very nice of them, even though they know I might say the ugly. And so, hopefully I'll pick one of those guys up and be able to talk about it. I am kind of excited about it. It is a Kizer front flipper, which means it's got the little tab up here, which allows you to open it. Like this, instead of... Completely butchered that, good lord. First day with a front flipper, I guess. But anyways, I'm pretty excited about it, but we'll find out there. Let's see here. 2 out of 5 stars. Good guy with fraudulent backflips. Indeed. You caught me here. How's the 942? So, this little guy right here. Look, in a lot of ways, there's a lot to like here. In fact, when I owned the 940, regular 940, I got a set of G10 scales for it that were not all that different from these. I mean, the quality was a little higher and whatnot, but you know what? It becomes a very nice knife. I mean, it starts off as one, but I don't like the aluminum scales on the regular 940, so this is pretty compelling. I don't remember the price of this guy, and that's going to be the big deal here. If this is any more expensive than the stock 940, like, you know, if this is $150 or something like that, then great, sure. But if they want like $200 for it, no, not so much there, Benchmade. Let's see here. 7 Ready asks, have I seen the new Curtis Knives pivot, which is not adjustable by the user at all? Oh, boy. That's ugly. If it's the case that they're trying to lock you out of your knife, that's ugly at a fundamental level. And it just means I'm never going to review his knives. If that's the case, it's just, no, that's terrible. So there you go. Caleb Downs and asks, I'm heading to the beach. Can you recommend an oil to coat my blades with to prevent rust? Generally speaking, I recommend the Frog Lube. It's an anti-rust sort of thing. This is the liquid form, and they make a sort of a oil, the solid oil kind of thing. So, yeah, that's something to keep in mind. But there are other approaches. Even mineral oil is just fine. It's food safe. So is the Frog Lube, by the way, although it's not super tasty. But practically speaking, mineral oil will do the trick just fine. And, there are other things out there you can check a look at. So, let's see here. Matthias Mertens, what are your thoughts on the YouTube war Jim Skelton thought for the knife community? I am not touching YouTube knife drama. Yeah. Anyways, moving it right along there. Good question. Using a contact holder for lube, nice. Yeah, so actually this is one of the innovations I had at some point, because I wanted to keep a little bit of the nano, of the Frog Lube, as well as on this side I've got Nano Grease, which is a grease product from the people who make nano oil, which is fine. I've also got other greases that I'm testing out these days. The Nano Grease has a terrible scent to it. Like, it smells like boiled hell. But anyways, yeah, it works very nicely. And since a lot of the time that I do something, like I use something like this, I will use like a little tool, like a spring bar tool or an oiler or something like that, to pick it up and then apply it. That's just a beautiful approach there. So, great question there. How do I test my knives for sharpness? Generally speaking, I will use a... sorry, a funny comment just went by. I love the smell of nano grease in the morning. That's dark. Generally, if I want to test sharpness, I will use a piece of phone book paper. I have a phone book that I'm gradually disassembling that I use for that because, it's the same paper, and I can use that as a gauge overall. So, yeah, good question there. Matthias Mertens, I'm pretty sure I would get that response. He's the guy who asked about Skelton. It's like asking about religion or abortion or politics. Yep. Speaking of things I'm not going after with a 10-foot freaking bowl. Any plans of ever designing a knife of my own, asks Brian Sandoval. No, probably not. Let's face it. I mean, and I've said this over and over again, I am like a food critic. I am not a chef. I understand what I like in a knife, and I understand what a lot of people like in knives at some level. But, I'm just one jackass, and it is a very different skill to be able to critique other people's work and to actually do the work myself. Even the people who, I give all kinds of people all kinds of trouble. Like, for instance, Greg Medford. I give him a lot of crap for his designs because they very much don't mesh with my view of the world. But the thing is, he is infinitely better as a knife maker than I would be. I could not, for all the crap that I give him, I couldn't create anything nearly as nice as this. I mean, maybe with a couple of years of work, maybe I could get close. Maybe. But no. And so, Tony Maffione even. I can't argue with his ability as an ability to make knives. 100%. But the thing is, well, I don't know. It's a very different skill set that I have. So that's not my road. It's not my approach, that is. Arena Fennec, holy crap, I knew his knives was thick. Yes, indeed. The Medford is, well, it's an impressive little knife there. That EDC freak asked, do I own a Mora knife? Yes, sure do. Interesting knife, that one. They make very nice fixed blades that are very inexpensive. For like $15, you can get a high-quality fixed blade. Keep one in the car, just in the kind of survival kit sort of thing, because it's a solid little fixed blade knife. And they're good cutting tools. Mora knives are great. You are going to be hard-pressed to find better value. I don't do fixed blade reviews because I'm not super passionate about them, but that's the first place I send anybody who needs a fixed blade for utility cutting. So yeah, there you go. Moras, there's a lot of good stuff there. Taylor Holland asks, what had to leave the collection to make room for the Omega? That's a good question. So when I bought this guy, I decided I was going to try and offset some of the price by selling off some items in my collection. The big ones were the Alamic Cutlery Custom Wayfarer Compact, which was a great knife, still is, but it was just a little too big for me. It wasn't getting a whole bunch of pocket time, and practically speaking, it was a knife that I liked looking at more than I liked owning. So, I have pictures, I can look at it. That one went. That helped a fair amount. I have also listed for sale the Omega Aquaterra. One of these days I'm going to break down and just put that on freaking Reddit or something so I can get it out of the way here. But I've got that listed up for sale. I'm trying to think what else I sold to free that up. I did some other just stuff locally on the Craigslist. But yeah, I just tried to clear up some funds. Not that I couldn't have done it on my own, but I really felt like this needed to come from the channel's resources, so it's not eating my face alive there. So yeah, there you go. What knives do I use in the kitchen? I actually have a pair of Northwood's chef's knives that I like very much. They're an XHP steel. Again, I'm not a chef, so I can't really review chef knives competently, but I enjoy them, and they keep an edge longer than most things. So there you go. Boost blades versus Rask, they look similar. They kind of look similar here. I'll show them off together. So this right here is the Boost Blades Aero, and this right here is the Grimsmo Rask. These are very different knives in a lot of ways. The Rask has a slightly better action, actually substantially better. This guy has some action issues caused by some production issues, but nonetheless. But I can see the similarity. They're both very smooth, very svelte sort of knives. I love the look of this guy, the Booz, a lot. Practically speaking, if it wasn't as pretty, would I still own it? Probably not. The pretty face is making up for some other issues with it, but still. Absolutely. Let's see here. Hate that huge hole, says Teddy Roosevelt. You know what? It's one of those things that I feel like is a trademark. And so I'm willing to let it go. And it's not so small that it collects crud as much. Is it perfect? No, but I mind it a lot less than you'd think I would. Let's see here. Brian Sandoval asks, Nick, what do you think of Nicolas Cage? Well, that's a little untraditional for a gear review talk, but sure, why not? I think Nicolas Cage doesn't get a lot of love as an actor, but, I kind of like him. He's done some great work. Leaving Las Vegas, I believe, was Nicolas Cage, and he was pretty good in that. And, as stupid as it sounds, the National Treasure series, absolutely, it's not exactly high cinema or anything like that, although it probably helps if you're high. But it is still a movie I enjoy very much, and I think he did a fun job there. So I don't have much of a problem with Nicolas Cage there. Great question, though. Let's see here. That C Freak asks if I ever tried whetstone sharpening. Yes, I have, absolutely. In fact, I am quite good at sharpening straight razors on a whetstone. The Japanese stone that I use for straight razors, or at least that I've used in the past. It's been a while since I've needed to. But I can re-hone a straight razor very nicely. But the problem for me with whetstone sharpening is that you need to control the angle very, very carefully. Some people are able to do that, and I really respect it, but for whatever reason, my hand-eye coordination is just not quite enough to be able to get a consistent bevel on a whetstone. If you can do a whetstone job, if you can use a whetstone to do a great job sharpening, that's spectacular, and it's something you should absolutely, nourish. It's a great skill to have, but unfortunately, I don't have that skill. So, there you go, something to keep in mind for the future. Here, we'll drop the Medford in here. Great question there. Folding knife storage recommendations. Some people talk about pelican cases. Pelicans are fine. They're an impediment. So to me, what I've done is I've lined drawers with Kaizen foam, much like I showed you earlier. And I have a drawer for my permanent collection, and then I got some drawers for my for the stuff that's just on loan, whatnot. So there you go. Good question there. You whetstone your axes you use in the woods? There you go. See? Exactly. Yes, Thorburn. This little guy right here is a Thorburn L28. Very, very interesting knife. Very nice. There's a whole bunch of good here. I got to film my review of this guy in the next day or two. So keep that in mind. But anyways, there you go. Great question. Should more companies embrace knives as tools and more unique blade shapes like razors? Absolutely. The thing I want most out of the knife world is uniqueness these days. There are so many frame lock flippers out there. And so I want to see more strange. I want to see more weird things going on. Whether it's weird opening mechanisms, weird locking mechanisms, weird blade shapes like the Norseman or the Razor. I want to see more weird. If you want to end up on my table, knife makers, the best way to do that is to do something weird well. And that's going to bring me joy. It's going to make me stop and go, wow, I want to see how that works. Because, if you put out another damn frame lock flipper that's, stonewashed and gray, it's really hard for me to get up a full had to give a damn. But if you do something different, you're likely to get my attention. So there you go. Peter Richard says, do what the Hawks do, indeed. G&G Hawk are spectacular knife makers, and they are constantly doing strange things. I feel like they are one of the forces for good in the knife community right now. Like, I don't know what they do in their spare time. I'm not judging, but nonetheless, they are doing great things for the knife community. So there you go. Anyways, okay, no violence discussions here, guys. We're good there. Yeah, actually, guys, I tell you what, my larynx is about to fly out and land on the table with a little splatter here. So I hope this has been interesting to you. Thank you very much for stopping in, and I hope that this has been interesting and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.